right, folks, let's get started. Thank you for joining, everyone. My name is Ariel. I am a planner for the county's Climate Action Plan, or CAP, update. You'll be hearing from me and a few other team members tonight, and we look forward to hearing from you. Just as a heads up, you should have gotten a notification that we are recording tonight's meeting to post on our website later. So by staying in the meeting, you do consent to any of your spoken comments being recorded. We are also streaming this on Facebook Live. Tonight, we have a Spanish interpreter available named Frida, who is also on screen here with me. I'll hand it over to Frida now, who will cover how to use the interpretation feature via Zoom.
Thank you, Ariel. Good afternoon and welcome to this session. My name is Frida and I'll be your interpreter. Muy buenas tardes y bienvenidos a esta sesión. Mi nombre es Frida y seré su intérprete. I'll give this message both in English and in Spanish. Daré este mensaje tanto en inglés como en español. In order to provide language access, this meeting will have simultaneous bidirectional interpretation in English and Spanish. If you're bilingual, you don't have to click anything, but if you're not bilingual and you're using your laptop, please locate the icon shaped like a globe at the bottom of your screen, click on language interpretation, then select English. If you're using your phone or an iPad, then locate the three-dot menu in one of the corners of your screen, click on language interpretation, and then select English. When you speak, do so at a moderate pace because the interpreter is going to be simultaneously interpreting everything you say. A efecto de proporcionar acceso lingüístico, esta reunión contará con interpretación simultánea bidireccional al inglés y al español. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada, pero si usted no es bilingüe y está en su computadora, busca el icono en forma de globo que está en la parte inferior de su pantalla, haga clic en interpretación de idiomas y después seleccione español o Spanish. Si está usando su iPad o su teléfono, localice el menú de 3 puntos en una de las esquinas de su pantalla, haga clic en interpretación de idiomas y después seleccione aceptar, finalizar o done después de seleccionar español. Y les recordamos que esta reunión ha sido grabada, así que si usted permanece en la reunión, está dando su consentimiento para estar en dicha grabación, y también les recordamos que esta reunión está siendo transmitida en Facebook Live. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frida. Okay, so now on to some logistics on how to participate this evening. Tonight's workshop is meant to be interactive. So if you have any questions or comments throughout the workshop, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. This will help us stay organized and ensure we answer your questions directly. Staff will be monitoring and responding to the Q&A as we go. And at the end of the meeting, we will have a public comment period when we will first respond to your questions or comments that you submitted throughout the presentation. And then you will have a chance to call in or unmute yourself and let your voice be heard. The next few slides will show us how to access and use the Q&A feature. In addition to the Q&A feature, we will also be using the polling platform called Poll Everywhere to solicit your input. I'll provide instructions on how to access this platform in just a few moments. If you're viewing the meeting on a computer, you can find the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So if you weren't able to introduce yourself earlier, please feel free to do so now to test that feature. At the end of our presentation, we will provide an opportunity for you to give comments and ask questions verbally if you prefer. When the time comes, if you would like to speak, use the raise hand function in the reactions menu at the bottom. When it is your turn to speak, you can unmute yourself to share your comment or question. Here is how you can find the Q&A and raise hand features on your mobile or smart device. If you don't see that view, then click on the More button located at the bottom of the Zoom window. Then click on the Q&A button to send your comments and questions. Again, I am Ariel. With me tonight are Julia, Joe, Chad, Claire, and Kelly, who also work for the county. Chad and Joe will also be presenting tonight, and Claire, Julia, and Kelly will be helping behind the scenes. You may see their names pop up in the Q&A as well. On this slide, we have a simple agenda for the workshop. Last summer, we asked you to share feedback to help inform the draft vision of an equitable net zero emissions future in each of the CAP's emissions sectors. Tonight, we're going to talk about the draft vision statement for the energy sector, along with the draft strategies and measures to reach that vision. We'll host 2 more workshops later in the summer to cover the other emission sectors of ag and conservation and built environment and transportation. We hope to see you all there as well. Tonight, our main objective is to share with you our current progress and receive additional feedback from you through polling questions and a live discussion forum at the end. Now I'm going to hand it off to Chad, who will get more into the details of why we're here tonight.
Okay, thanks, Ariel. So good evening, everyone. My name is Chad Spoon. I'm a sustainability planner at the county, and I'll be discussing first why we're here tonight. I would like to set the stage with a common goal. We're all here to get to know each other and introduce the Climate Action Plan, or CAP update. I'm sure that there are some here that have been part of the county's CAP update longer than I have, and there are some of you that are brand new to the process. Our goal here is to make this as interesting as possible for everyone, and we hope that we can all learn something new tonight. Because we are all coming from different perspectives and places within the CAP update process, we'll first set the stage with an overview of, the CAP update. We'll then cover what the energy sector is all about. And finally, we will launch into the fun part of tonight's workshop, and that's hearing from you and receiving your feedback. So speaking on behalf of myself and the CAP team, we're extremely interested in hearing from you, and we want to know if you think we've adequately captured your previous feedback, what you think about the vision, strategies, and measures we are considering, what solutions you think are the most important, and how we can implement solutions that work for everyone. So thanks for being here, and let's get started. So in order, as Ariel mentioned, we're going to be receiving your feedback using an online interactive platform called Poll Everywhere. You can see on the screen how to enter that. First, one of our staff will provide a link in the chat box so you can go directly to it, or you can use if you want to respond via your phone, you can scan the QR code on the left-hand side, and that will take it to you, you can enter into the web address with your browser and type in pollev.com/SDCO sustainable 681. Again, once you do that, it will automatically take you to our poll questions. So I'll give it a few moments for everyone to get logged in. If you have any trouble with that, please let us know in the chat and someone from a team will assist you. Again, that is pollev.com/SDCO sustainable 681. And our first set of poll questions are going to give us a chance to get to know you and the community a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead into that. So our first question of the night is an easy one. What brought you here today? We really want to learn a little bit more about the participants that we have here with us tonight. Once you enter in a response, it's going to automatically populate on the screen for everyone. So again, what brought you here today? Are you here to learn something new? Energy, yes. Want to know what the county has planned and have input? That's great. That's what we're here for. Interest in the CAP's understanding of sustainability, okay? Maybe others are still trying to access the polling platform. Understanding CAP, well, that's great. We're gonna actually, right after these couple first questions, we're gonna get into an explanation of the CAP update. Affordable energy, okay, that's a great comment. And so this particular poll question will allow you to enter in more than one. So if there's a couple of reasons why you're here, feel free to provide your input. Interest in the CAP update policy goals and its impact on county staff structure. Okay, net zero emission targets. Very good. Okay, I think it's starting to slow down. So maybe we'll go to the next question. So this one will help us know a little bit about your relationship with the county. You can select more than one answer if it fits you. So are you a resident of the unincorporated county? Do you live within an incorporated city, such as the city of San Diego or La Mesa? Are you, okay, as you can see, an energy utility professional? We have a few, mostly residents of the unincorporated county, a couple from incorporated cities. couple community-based organization representatives. Thank you for joining us. Another, all right. And that looks like it. Okay, there's a couple more late entries. All right, it looks like it's leveling off. So maybe we'll move to our next slide. And that's going to start, I think, to help answer some of the questions that we saw in the beginning for why people joined the meeting tonight. Again, so thanks for sharing a bit about yourself. Now we'd like to share a bit about the CAP update so that you can understand where we are in the process. The County of San Diego's CAP is a multi-objective plan that balances environmental, economic, and community interests and implements the county's general plan and aligns with multiple county initiatives. The CAP's main goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we commonly are going to probably refer to those as GHG emissions. And those are the cause of climate change and can result of many of our regular activities, including using electricity. The plan aims to meet state targets and achieve a net zero carbon emissions goal by 2035 to 2045. And that essentially means that we're going to be removing as much of the emissions as we're producing. But the CAP update isn't just about climate change. It's also about quality of life. It's about people. It's about communities. It's about our neighborhoods, our parks, our daily trips and errands, our energy and water use, and the waste thrown in our trash bins. The actions the county will take to reduce GHG emissions also have the potential to improve our lives. That means things like planting more trees in parks, making it easier and safer to walk and ride a bicycle, making it easier to charge electric vehicles, planting drought-tolerant landscaping, retiring polluting vehicles, and reducing the waste that ends up in our landfills. So last summer, we hosted a workshop series in which we covered where emissions in the county come from and asked participants about their vision for an equitable net zero emissions future as it pertains to the CAP's 5 sectors. Over the last few months, we've used your feedback to develop draft vision statement for each of the 5 sectors. This vision guides the development of subsequent strategies, measures, and actions we will take. Our final stage of the feedback process will offer additional opportunities for you all as stakeholders to prioritize which approaches you want included in the CAP. So today, we're going to refresh our memories of energy emissions, and then we'll discuss feedback we've received from you. We'll discuss the draft vision statement for the energy emission sector, and then we'll present some strategies and measures to reach your vision. So the first step in the county's climate action planning process is to understand the sources and amounts of GHG emissions generated from activities within the county, unincorporated areas, and county operations. So this chart on the left of the slide is a breakdown of the different greenhouse gas producing sectors by how much emissions they produce. This is how we establish the different sectors we are working in. For example, tonight's workshop focuses on energy, and that includes the use of electricity and natural gas, and that's responsible for 33% of the GHG emissions in the unincorporated area and county operated facilities. The CAP update seeks to address all of the emissions being produced through a focus of 5 main sectors, and those are solid waste, built environment and transportation, energy, water and wastewater, and agriculture and conservation. So throughout the summer, we're holding similar webinars for the other 4 sectors of the CAP update, and you can find information about those from our website. The way the CAP breaks down is as such. First, we start with a vision statement, or what we want to achieve. Then we identify the strategies to get to that vision statement, the measures that we can track to achieve those strategies, the specific implementing actions we need to pursue to reach those measures, and followed by the supporting efforts that can't be quantified but nonetheless do contribute to achievement of the measures. As a reminder for those who were not with us at the workshop last summer, Energy emissions are generated from two sources. That's electricity consumption and natural gas consumption. As we just discussed, together these contribute to 33% of the total greenhouse gas emissions in the unincorporated area. Electricity and natural gas consumption are categorized in the emissions inventory by consumption sources, and these are the location or use where they were consumed. These consumption sources include residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural buildings, and also county facilities. So the chart on the slide provides a breakdown of emissions for electricity use from the 2018 cap. And as you can see, a majority of the electricity consumed in the county is associated with residential buildings, and that's at roughly 55%. Now, next, we're going to look more in depth at how we consume energy and generate greenhouse gas emissions in our own residential homes and county facilities. So this infographic gives us an idea of what energy emissions generation looks like in a residential home, but you should also know that we're also being inclusive of county operations. After all, our homes and counties facilities rely on energy to support our basic needs and comfort. This includes electricity to keep the lights on, power our appliances, and also to watch our favorite television shows at home. And while it does not generate emissions in your home, our inventory also accounts for how that electricity is made. So many power generators create greenhouse gas emissions to produce this electricity. And finally, we also generate GHG gases in our homes when we use natural gas or propane-powered appliances, such as hot water heaters, gas-powered stoves, or propane barbecues. And these activities create greenhouse gases directly as a result of burning natural gas or propane. And so over the course of the last year, while we have been conducting outreach, we have heard a lot of information from you as stakeholders about energy. And listing all of those comments would be too many and too busy of a slide. So what we've done here is provided high-level themes that kind of summarize the input that we've heard from you. So some of those themes that emerged were desires for energy efficient buildings and appliances, access to renewable energy options, subsidies and incentive programs, clean energy jobs and training programs, and education around energy use and efficiency. And so with that, we have on the slide here our draft vision statement for the energy sector. So using the comments that we received, also at last summer's visioning workshop, as well as some technical knowledge, we've created this following draft vision statement. And as a reminder, a vision statement is intended to describe the ideal future where the county has achieved an equitable net zero emissions future in each of the sectors. So the vision statement for energy reads, renewable carbon-free energy systems power efficient buildings and result in resiliency, lower emissions, and reduced costs. So I'm going to pause on that for just a moment to let everyone read that again. It's renewable carbon-free energy systems power efficient buildings and result in resiliency, lower emissions, and reduced costs. In our next slide, we're going to have another poll question, and we're going to ask you what you think about this vision statement. So for our next poll, we'd like to know, did we get it right? Does the vision statement for energy sector that's on the slide at the top, does it reflect your prior comments? Does this reflect your vision for the energy sector? So there's a couple answers you can respond to. Yes, it does, almost there, not quite, or no, this vision does not represent my comments. So we're getting some answers now. I'm seeing mostly almost there, so that's great. There's a small amount of no, a couple of not quite, and a couple of yes, so that's great. And as you respond to this question, just as a preview, our next question is going to ask more specifics about those that answered maybe almost or not quite or no, it does not. So please start thinking about maybe what could have changed to reflect your comments better. And as a reminder, throughout this presentation today, you can use the Q&A function to submit any questions that you may have. Okay, so we'll go to the next question. Okay, so as a follow-up, for those of you who think we're almost or not quite there with the vision statement, what else do you think should be included? And we'll add that even if you answered that you agreed with the vision statement, is there anything else that you feel should be represented in that statement? So I'm seeing, okay, all electric language. Okay, thank you. Some other maybe prompts that make you think about why did you select your answer? You know, did the vision statement not cover the right topics? Was it too broad or was it too small? Okay, we're seeing local energy production and storage, potentially something about distributed energy resources. Total environmental impact needs to be considered. Okay, these are great comments. Clean energy. And again, this is a question that you can respond more than once. There is no mention of climate justice or frontline communities. Adding by 2035. So putting a deadline. When the board adopts energy policy goals, they also need to identify county staff who will be responsible for ensuring that those goals are achieved. Needing someone to be accountable, that's very good. So adding into the vision statement something about net zero energy, okay. 45% are vehicles, there's no other way to get around it. Why aren't EVs a major GHG reduction tool? That is a great comment, and we will be hosting a workshop later in the summer about built environment and transportation, and I believe you will hear more about electric vehicles at that webinar. So we encourage you to also participate in that one as well. Okay, it looks like the responses are starting to slow down. So again, thank you for everyone for these initial responses. We're going to have some more questions for you later. And at this time, I'm going to hand it off to Joe, who's going to introduce the draft strategies and measures.
Great, thank you, Chad. Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Cryer, and I'm going to discuss our draft strategies and measures for the energy sector. As Chad described earlier, a strategy is a high-level approach to achieve the vision statement that you just commented on, and a measure includes specific actions to achieve that strategy. So there are many ways we can reduce GHG emissions, but there are several requirements for measures in the CAP. The county must have data to demonstrate the quantity, to demonstrate and quantify the reduction over time. We must have jurisdictional authority to enforce the action, and we must have the ability to monitor reductions over time. And CAP measures must also be additional to existing regulations, meaning that the action would not have occurred otherwise. The strategies, measures, and actions we share this evening will be workshopped and are conceptual at this point. So your feedback can really help us shape what goes into the plan. Now I'd like to ask you another question to respond to and poll everywhere, and which is, why is reducing energy use important to you? So what do you think? Is it, it's not for some people? Any other thoughts on why reducing energy use is important to you, or maybe thoughts on why it's not important to you for that commenter? Cost, yeah, that can be a factor, certainly. Energy can cost a lot, and especially today with geopolitics the way they are. Global warming, yes, reducing energy use can help reduce global warming, as we're discussing tonight. There should be clean energy abundance. Yeah, so also not just concerns about reducing total energy use, but also where the energy comes from, providing clean energy. Yeah, people care about saving money, maintaining a stable climate, national security, absolutely. Important topic there. Because energy use creates greenhouse gases, which hit communities of concern the hardest. It's an environmental and equity issue. Thank you, and absolutely, we are weaving equity and environmental justice concerns throughout our work in the CAP. And everyone can do their part to help make reductions in their lives. And looks like, oh, okay. We still have answers rolling in. So if you have anything else you want to add, energy reduction is not a goal. Energy efficiency is a goal. Okay, that's a good point. Good clarification. Thank you for that comment. Cost, strategic importance, reducing GHG, great weather, clean energy abundance. All right, seeing some themes amongst comments. All right, thank you. With reduced power level, reduced level of hydropower, we'll need to reduce our consumption. Yeah, with the drought conditions across the West, that's certainly a factor right now. Our environment will not survive unless we get our energy use under control and stop burning fossil fuels. Thank you. All right. Great. I appreciate all the responses on that one. We got a lot of responses, so thank you for sharing your thoughts. All right. Well, now that I see no more comments coming in, thank you. We can move on to our first strategy that we'd like to talk about tonight. In the energy sector, there are 3 high-level strategies that we've drafted that result in the reduction of greenhouse gases. Our first one is increase building energy efficiency and electrification. And over the next few slides, we're going to explore the measures that can help us achieve this strategy. The first draft measure is shown here. And when we talk about reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with energy, it often comes down to prioritizing energy efficiency. In the 2018 Climate Action Plan, we included a measure to reduce energy use intensity, or EUI, at county facilities by 20% by the year 2030. The measure on this slide aims to set a more ambitious energy efficiency goal than our 2018 CAP measure requires us to. You'll notice here and throughout the presentation that we have some XX percentage or XX numbers. That's because we're still in the workshopping phase and the emissions inventory and stakeholder outreach work is still ongoing. So we still have some work to do before we determine what goals we set for 2030. Now, some examples under this measure would be that would push the 2018 CAP measure further, include, but are not limited to the following. We could replace gas-powered equipment, increase all electric, zero net energy new construction. We could have energy consumption and performance monitoring in county facilities. We can increase LED lighting retrofits in county facilities as well, and do things like install cool roofs to reduce cooling costs during the summertime. You may have noticed an asterisk following some of the potential actions. The asterisk indicates specific recommendations we received at previous meetings, workshops, or conversations with stakeholders like yourselves. So we want to show off that we are incorporating your feedback. Now, speaking of which, we have another question for you. What actions would you like to see the county take to reduce energy use? And again, that question is, what actions would you like to see the county take to reduce energy use? Ban crypto throughout the country, or through the county, excuse me. Oh, and this answer is you can vote on it. So other responses, you can go in there and pull everywhere, and you can do a little click for up vote or down vote. If you like somebody's idea, you can add your own, or you can also vote on somebody else's. Cool roofs are a great idea. Thank you. Yeah, that's a way, like I mentioned, to reduce some cooling costs, especially in summertime and weeks like this when we're having heat waves. All right, thermal district heating and cooling in the city. Yep, that's something that's used, especially in some European cities, as a way to reduce energy use and centralize heating. Oh, they're moving around a bit. Ban gas hookups in all new construction immediately. To reduce the gas use and the GHG associated with that. Commit to passing a REACH code to ban new methane gas for all new development. So a similar one there. So this one, the measure that I just talked about, deals with the county facilities. So think of the county administration center in downtown, or libraries, firehouses, things like that. And then shortly we'll talk about what we can do in the community in the unincorporated area. But thank you for these comments and ideas. Let's see, what else do we have here that I haven't read off? Commit to electrifying all county-owned buildings by 2035. Yep, great ideas. Develop nuclear clean energy, certainly a clean energy form there as well. All right. Looks like maybe everybody's got a chance to put in their answer and have their votes. Any last calls? Replace all fluorescent light fixtures with LED lighting in county facilities. Absolutely something we are considering here. That's a way that we can reduce energy use. And then, like folks mentioned earlier in the comments, that's a way that can also be a cost-saving measure to save money on energy costs as well. Great. All right. Well, things moving around here. Thank you all for your comments and for your votes. I think we can move on now to our second draft measure. And this one, like I mentioned, deals more with the unincorporated area. So our second potential measure here is to increase energy efficiency and convert gas appliances in existing buildings in the unincorporated area. Now, this measure aims and is intended for the unincorporated area, like I mentioned. And similar to prioritizing energy efficiency at county facilities, this measure includes possible actions like increasing LED lighting retrofits, replacing gas-powered appliances and equipment with electric where possible, and creating incentives for energy efficiency improvements. So I'll let you all respond to this question here, which is, what are other strategies the county can require or incentivize to increase the use of energy efficient appliances? So some of the ones that I mentioned on that slide before were LED lighting, replacing gas appliances, and some kind of structures for incentives. What do you all think about requirements and incentives, and like where they should apply, what you'd like to see in the unincorporated area? Have a recycling program for old appliances? Yeah, thank you. We actually, in our first workshop this summer in early June, we had a discussion about solid waste. So we are also addressing solid waste concerns throughout the unincorporated area and with county facilities as well. So thank you for raising that concern here as well. An incentive to replace all gas appliances in a home. Yeah, some kind of a financial incentive possibly to help people replace their equipment. Switch to electric. Commit to establishing strong, equitable retrofit measures for existing buildings, such as developing a comprehensive all-electric retrofit plan that will prioritize environmental justice communities. That's a great idea. Thank you for that contribution. And I think something that you've touched upon there is equity and environmental justice, certainly important for the work that we're doing. And then also retrofit for existing buildings. Yeah, absolutely. Important comment there. Thank you. We can't ignore existing buildings as well. So thank you for pulling that up, bringing that up. It will be almost impossible to convince people to tear out gas furnaces and stoves and replace them with electric ones, even if the county paid for it. Yeah, comment reflecting that these upgrades can be costly, and even if it's not just cost, there may be other considerations. So thank you for that comment. Promote home ownership. Landlords typically do not invest in energy saving appliances. That's a good point. So any kind of policies, incentives would also need to address renters as well, or landlords. So that's definitely appreciated that you bring up that consideration. Thank you. Replace gas in a per neighborhood basis in underserved communities. Yeah, thank you. Good. It's good to see the theme about concern for underserved communities or environmental justice communities throughout the unincorporated area. Fantastic. Any more thoughts before we move on about strategies for requiring or incentivizing more energy efficient appliances? just give it another moment in case anybody's typing something in so they don't get cut off, and then we'll go ahead to our third measure. All right, let's move on, please. Thank you. Fantastic. The next draft measure is to achieve increased electrification of new buildings in the unincorporated area by 2030. So some example activities of how to achieve this measure could include adopting policies and programs that reduce use of natural gas infrastructure in new buildings, and developing incentives to install electric appliances in existing buildings. So something that we saw in the comments just now. So you all are well on top of it. Give you a second to read that, and now move to our next question, which is, what would make it easier for you to use less energy? And you can take this to mean less energy in general, like we talked about energy efficiency earlier, using less energy, or you could also take it to using less gaseous fuels that emit more greenhouse gas emissions. What are your thoughts? Why do I want to use less energy? Yeah, thank you. That's may not be a goal or may not be a benefit of the climate action plan for some people. Yeah, well, it sounds like somebody else had that question. And I think to address that somewhat, we point to earlier in our presentation where we described how energy use is associated with greenhouse gas emissions. And then we'll also talk about co-benefits of the plan later. So hopefully we can cover some thoughts and reasoning behind why we're looking at that in the climate action plan that will help answer your question. So thank you for bringing that up. Live grid updates to know when draw is high. Yeah, got it. So know when draw is high so you can reduce your demand according to that. So you can kind of reduce the overall energy demand curve. Thank you. And then let's see, got some coming in. Thank you. Timers and switches on outlets that turn off when during certain times. Looks like that comment was. Being able to install affordable all electric appliances in my home. Yeah, that could definitely help use less energy by changing the appliances. If SDG&E, our main utility here, took control of its energy efficiency programs away from the CPUC energy division and focus them on helping certain folks, local customers, do more. Yeah. So bring some more local control, sounds like there, to help with programs with energy efficiency. All right, passive cooling remodel or upgrades. Yeah, definitely building design. That's a good point there. Building design and orientation, things like that. We mentioned cool roofs earlier, but there are other considerations for building design too that can reduce energy use. Funding, incentives, rebates for efficient electric appliances and energy retrofits. So yeah, thank you bringing up the comment about incentives again. You should distinguish between energy usage and energy services. An efficient appliance delivers the same result with less energy. Yeah, thank you for that comment. That's something that we can look at in terms of our language and our terminology. All right, what do you do with solar curtailing this causes? And I'm not 100% sure what that comment was addressing or asking, but so if you would want to clarify that in the chat or Q&A, we can talk about that more. And then encourage the new local CCAs, so like San Diego Community Power, to develop new energy efficiency programs to serve the customers they purchase energy for. Yeah. And all of the above approach to energy allows people to use the same amount of energy while still being clean and green. Yeah, that's a good comment. Thank you for that. That's, you'll see tonight that we're talking about a lot of different topics, and that's really what it's going to take with just addressing energy in general, but especially with helping achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. And another comment, there are options to the current energy generation schemes. Depending on the goals, they can create different outcomes. County needs to take stand on the efforts by the CPUC. I'm seeing a few CPUC comments, probably related to some that we saw earlier about an Energy Star. So thank you for those comments. Should be regulated, regulate CCAs. I cannot keep up with all the comments. Thank you everybody for all the great comments. High energy efficiency pumps. Yep, that's a way to help reduce energy use. On-site water reuse. Yeah, certainly we had a workshop, actually our last one we did 2 weeks ago covered water and wastewater. And there's a nexus between water use and energy use because water needs to be treated and transported, extracted, and treated afterwards. And that all uses energy, especially water that's imported from the Colorado from Northern California. So great connections everybody's making here tonight. Okay, we saw a lot of comments, so I think we can move on to our next strategy, talking about a little bit of a different approach to reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the energy sector. Now, the second strategy is to reduce greenhouse gases. To reduce greenhouse gases from the sector is to increase renewable electricity production and storage. Now, over the next few slides, we're going to explore how we can accomplish that. So increase renewable energy production and storage. The first draft measure is to increase renewable energy production and storage, specifically at county facilities. The 2018 cap requires a goal to generate 20% of electricity with on-site renewables. We will aim to expand this measure in our cap update to increase both renewable energy generation and energy storage. Some example activities of how to achieve this measure include installing photovoltaic or PV systems on existing county properties, funding or developing renewable energy projects, or funding and installing microgrids powered with zero emissions resources for critical county facilities. I'll give you just a moment to look at that one. And now we have, yeah, thank you. We can move on to our second measure. The second draft measure is to increase solar photovoltaics or PV and energy storage in the unincorporated area by more than what was required in the 2018 cap. So that first one was related to county facilities, and now this one is related to the unincorporated area. So residences, businesses, and so on. Now the county makes solar permitting easy by implementing its solar ready ordinance, which supports the installation of PV systems to produce clean, renewable electricity at unincorporated residences. The 2018 cap set a goal of over 130,000 homes with solar PV by 2030. And as of last year, an equivalent of 68,290 homes in the unincorporated area have solar PV. So just a couple years into the plan implementation, we have more than halfway towards that goal. Example activities of how to increase the 2030 goal include requirements and incentives to support solar photovoltaics and battery storage, and also streamlining residential renewable energy installation. Now we have a question for you about that measure. How interested are you in seeing more solar installed on buildings and houses in your community? And you have a couple different options you can choose from here. All right, seeing a lot of interest so far. That's the biggest one, or the largest response. Then maybe a couple folks neutral, maybe a few people not interested at all. Okay, but overall looks like a large amount of interest in more solar voltaic in buildings and houses in your community. Great, thank you for that feedback. That was a quick one, so I think we can now move on, which brings us to our third and final strategy for the evening. The third strategy to reduce greenhouse gases in the energy sector is to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and high global warming potential products. The next slide will show how we can accomplish that. The draft measure we have under the strategy is to reduce the reliance on gas and diesel generators in county operations and in the unincorporated area. Some examples of how to achieve this are to replace diesel powered generators at county facilities with cleaner alternatives, and to incentivize replacement of gas and diesel generators in the community. Now moving on to our next question that we have for you in Poll Everywhere. What are other ways we can move away from using gas or diesel generators? And so just a little bit more context, gas and diesel generators are used in county facilities for county operations, used at places or buildings for kind of like emergency backup, for example. And then there may be some generators in the community that people may use also for emergency backup generation, energy generation. Great, so thank you, some responses here. Hydrogen energy system, hydrogen generators, right? Yeah, hydrogen as a storage fuel that can be converted to electricity for backup. There's some projects out there that are working on that, generating new systems. V2G, also a vehicle to grid, capable cars and trucks can act as backup power. Yep, the US Department of Energy has done some pilot projects looking at using school buses, and maybe it's actually even moved beyond pilots, but using school buses to provide, electric school buses rather, to provide backup energy using the large batteries on those school buses to provide energy during emergencies. Equitable electrification, yeah, thank you. Again, more comments about equity, environmental justice. Maybe we can hear more later during the Q&A and chat what you all think about equitable electrification, what that means to you. We'd like to hear more about that. And then also, again, with the hydrogen, we'd like to hear what you all think about different, like, new and emerging technologies. What are your thoughts on different technologies out there? Install rooftop solar and batteries to power those county facilities and homes countywide. Yeah, certainly batteries powered by solar can be a way to provide emergency backups as opposed to diesel and gas. Renewable drop-in fuels for generators, renewable diesel. Yep, certainly. You know, that renewable diesel just kind of being produced in a different way to diesel and being cleaner burning can reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the same equipment potentially. Nuclear power. I think SMR, small nuclear reactors, is maybe what that stands for. On-site solid oxide fuel cells or hydrogen fuel cells are a zero emission and renewable green hydrogen using biomethane, yeah, type technology. Yeah, so thank you again. Another comment about using kind of emerging fuels, emerging technologies. And another comment about hydrogen generators. So that one's certainly popular or showing up quite a bit in the comments. Maybe a little bit divided here based on the votes that we're seeing on each of them, but thank you for putting those in there for our consideration. All right, great. I love again how active everybody is. So that brings us to the conclusion of the 6 measures that we are considering right now in the energy sector. And here you can see them summarized, or you can see them all together on this one slide. And in Poll Everywhere, what you can do here is click or tap, depending on what device you're on the measure that you find most exciting, the one that you find most interesting or promising. So you can see some folks have already clicked or tapped, and you can see a little green icon, a little bit faint, so they might be a little bit tough to show up, but tap which one you think is most exciting, and that will help us see, you know, kind of what the audience is really interested in tonight. And I see a couple of them I saw 2 of them on the top left on the first measure. It looks like they went away, but I saw a couple of them populating there. There we go. So 3 of them on the first one. So it looks like so far most popular is energy efficiency. So back to our conversation about reducing energy use earlier. All right, couple on. Oh, looks like each one is selected. So all right, somebody, each one is popular. amongst some folks. So that's good to see. Hopefully tells us that we're getting all the things right, or well, I mean, big picture, and we're happy to hear more about what you think about kind of fine tuning our approaches. So great. I hope everybody had an opportunity to select the measure that you find more exciting, and during our Q&A and chat, hope to hear more new thoughts on that. And now that concludes my part of the presentation, and I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Ariel. Oh,
Thanks.
you know, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead one. Sorry about that. Go back one. We do actually have one more question. I skipped ahead. So I couldn't wait to get to Ariel's section. I think it's actually a really exciting part of the presentation. So my last question in my section for you is, are there any energy strategies, measures, or actions that the county should consider? So what did we miss? Is there anything that we missed that you'd like to share with us? And there were a few, I think we saw in the comments already, things about hydrogen. So please keep those ideas coming. Waste to energy, yeah. Our first workshop that I mentioned, solid waste, earlier this month, we did cover waste to energy. That was a topic that came up for some folks. Circular economy, again, covered in our solid waste sector. So yeah, we're certainly taking a kind of we have 5 different sectors that we're looking at for the climate action plan. And certainly there's a lot of interconnectedness between all of these sectors. Consider total environmental impact in the development of energy sources. So yeah, certainly for any kind of energy procurement, there's development and extraction that goes on there. So looking at kind of like total environmental impact or total life cycle cost impact. On-site water reuse. Yeah, thank you for more comments about water. Again, there being an energy nexus there, and absolutely something that we're covering in the climate action plan. We'll have recordings from both the solid waste and water and wastewater presentations posted on our website in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully if none of you all had an opportunity to join those, you can go and view them and then always send us comments after. A measure not to consider. Oh, and thank you. That's a good question too. Anything we should not consider, things that folks don't like. So valid response there, thank you. Measure not to consider, hydrogen as a heating measure mixed into natural gas lines. Okay, thank you for that comment. Stop wasting energy, maximize rooftop solar and battery use. Yeah, good point there of like, you know, there could be there are a lot of rooftops out there that don't have solar photovoltaic panels on them. And you know, the sun is shining on those rooftops anyway. Regulate producers to ensure the energy generation of high quality energy. Great. I'd like to hear more later about what you all think about high quality energy and what that all means to you, and maybe what that means in other areas of like high quality jobs or high quality in terms of the people it serves or purely environmental concerns. So thank you for these comments. Really, I think a lot. We'd like to hear more from you. Green hydrogen, yeah. Nuclear and green hydrogen can also be called renewable hydrogen sometimes for folks. Nuclear energy reprocessing from spent nuclear fuel. All right, yeah, some kind of like advanced technologies, or some of them are mature and exist, but may not be used in the county right now. Do not consider a single energy supply as a complete answer. Yeah, I think that aligns well with somebody's comment earlier of kind of above all of the above type strategy. And we saw a comment about energy security, national security. That's certainly something that will come up in energy conversations where you know, it's good to diversify for a number of reasons. So thank you for that comment. And further breakdown of sources of residential energy use and education and resources to help reduce use by habit changes and upgrades. Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's a big part of it is changing kind of the infrastructure, changing the way that we interact with our environment. That's how we'll get to greenhouse gas emission reductions. None of the draft measures currently mention equity. Thank you very much. Yes, so they do not mention equity as they are right now. They will certainly incorporate equity in their later draft and final forms, and it's certainly something that we're talking about at the measure level. So thank you for pointing that out, and it's something we may be able to communicate better of how we are incorporating them. But it is actually a requirement for the CAP update to incorporate equity into our measures and into the plan overall. So that's something that you will see and we will share more about. So thank you for keeping that front and center. Hire a new county energy SAR and give them the power to make sure that county's energy goals are met, working with department chiefs. Yeah, thank you. Saw a comment earlier. Sounds like that was a previous role in the county. Yeah, thank you for that comment. Offshore wind has not appeared in the list. Yeah, that's something we can look at. That one might be tricky because we do not have the jurisdiction over the ocean. It's something that the board in general has looked at. There was a board letter about 6 months ago or so, or late last year, that directed staff to kind of look at alternative energy forms there. So the county in general is looking at that due to the restrictions that I mentioned earlier about what it takes to be a CAP measure, that it's a little bit more difficult for something like that to be considered in the CAP. But thank you for offering those types of suggestions. Don't hire additional staff, reassign. So reassign work maybe to help accomplish these things. Identifying funding sources from state and federal government. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to take a lot to pay for all of this. The Navy has blocked offshore wind off San Diego and Southern California due to its training needs. That's a big consideration. I mean, we're operating in an environment where there are other jurisdictions, other governments, other operations, and there are limits to what we can do. So offshore wind is not efficient in SoCal. Yeah, may or may not be the best location for it. Another comment about offshore wind will not work in Southern California because of military operations and deep sea ocean seafloor, as well as migratory whales. Yeah, absolutely. Jurisdictional concerns, other environmental concerns, site suitability concerns. Thank you. Y'all are bringing just great ideas and a lot of just a lot of great thoughts to this process. So thank you. All right, I'm seeing the comments slow down. So I think now I am ready to hand it over to my colleague Ariel. Onshore wind is a good use in SoCal. All right, great. So we got, I like the activity in the comments. So, but thank you so much for your attention. And now over to my colleague Ariel. Thanks, Ariel.
Thanks, Joe. And those last few comments are actually a perfect segue into this next part of our discussion this evening. So now that we've discussed draft measures and actions that we're considering for the energy emission sector, we want to better understand why these actions are important to you. For most people, we realize that reducing greenhouse gas emissions is not their main interest or reason for supporting a measure or action. Instead, they're interested in the complementary benefits or concerns that result from that activity. Also known as co-benefits, these are positive outcomes from the action that are not directly tied to climate change efforts. And for example, on the slide here, there's a list of a number of different potential co-benefits. And for the CAP update, we want to be sure to include the measures that impact the co-benefits that you all as stakeholders are most interested in. So from the feedback we've heard so far, we attempted to identify why those activities might be of interest to you. For instance, when you said in a previous workshop that you wanted to create green energy or green jobs in rural and low-income areas, we thought this might be important to you very clearly because of the result in job generation. When you said you're concerned about prioritizing retrofits in disadvantaged and high pollution areas, we thought this might be because of larger community health concerns or a desire to improve community health. When you said you're interested in building electrification and efficiency, we thought this might be important to you because of opportunities to save money on utility bills. And lastly, when you said you would like to see subsidies or grants provided for solar installation, especially in low-income communities, we thought this was because you want to promote environmental and social justice, which has been a theme running through tonight's discussion for sure. Of course, each of these activities could have additional co-benefits beyond the ones listed here. But what we really want to know from you all this evening is, are our assumptions correct? Are these the issues you are most concerned with or interested in impacting through the CAP update as it relates to energy, or is it something else? So back to poll everywhere and getting your input. on the slide here for this question, there's a sampling of co-benefits that we've identified, and we want to give you the opportunity to give input on these co-benefits. And looks like folks already understand the assignment, so you can select all that apply to you, which co-benefits are of most importance. We see that increased energy security and resilience is out there in the lead. Now save money on utility bills. Improving community health is also very important. Creating green jobs and improving air quality. Of course, it makes sense that perhaps improving access to electric vehicles when it comes to the energy sector, reducing noise might not make as much sense as we address those in some of the other sectors. But it looks like jobs, saving money, and improving and conserving public and community health are the front runners. So thanks for sharing that. All right. Now, in addition to co-benefits, there might be some other reasons you want the county to pursue implementation of one activity over another. What are some of those other criteria? And for this particular question, you can rank the options that we present to you on the slide here. So are you most interested in supporting some of those co-benefits from the previous slide, or supporting equity and environmental justice, reducing greenhouse gas emissions quickly, reducing costs to residents and businesses, or saving taxpayer money? So it looks like saving taxpayer money is in the lead here. Supporting co-benefits is also very important. And if there are other criteria you think we should be considering, please feel free to share that in the chat or the Q&A. Things are shifting a bit here. What was once in last place is now most important. So reducing greenhouse gas emissions quickly. And then supporting co-benefits and environmental justice and equity. Wonderful. Thank you for your feedback. And like I said, if you prefer to share some additional ideas or considerations for criteria when we're deciding on which actions to pursue, we would appreciate any additional ideas you want to share. I think we can move on to the next slide. So the feedback that you share with us tonight and through all of our other workshops will help us make decisions about developing the CAP update. Our goal is to incorporate public feedback and considerations for equity and co-benefits as much as possible. We'll also weigh other concerns, including fiscal, technological, and legal constraints. For example, as we shared before, we are required to quantify, enforce, and monitor greenhouse gas reductions, which can limit what is possible. This means that the content we discussed tonight will not necessarily be what's in our final plan. Our next steps are to work within the county to further develop the draft measures. Then we'll evaluate the measures to see how much greenhouse gases they can reduce. And then we'll return to you all for more feedback to help build our draft measures. Ultimately, the board will have approval authority of the CAP update and will decide what the final plan includes. But they've already emphasized to us early and often that's important for us to include community input in this process. And now I'll hand it back to Joe to facilitate the question and answer portion of the meeting.
Great, thank you, Ariel. Now we've arrived at the public comment and Q&A portion of the workshop. I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight and let you know that your feedback here will help us draft the CAP update. Please make sure you're signed up for our email updates using the website address shown here on the slide, which can be found on our project website, so you can receive the latest project information direct to your inbox. For the Q&A portion, we'll start by addressing any of the comments that we've received and that are outstanding in the questions. But I'm looking now and I see that we don't have any outstanding questions. So then we'll go ahead to open it up to anybody on the phone, and we have directions for that. But I don't think I'm seeing anybody on the phone, so we can probably skip directions there and go on ahead to how you can ask to raise your hand. So of course, during this, if you're using Zoom on your computer, mobile, or smart device, look for the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen to let us know that you'd like to speak. When it's your turn, you'll receive a notification so you can select the unmute button, and at which point you'll be able to begin speaking. The host will mute your microphone when you're done. And so we'll be calling on speakers based on the order in which we receive requests, and we'll prompt you when it's your turn. Please state your name for the record. And we want to give everyone who wants to, give everyone who wants a chance to speak to be heard. So please try to keep your comments brief, and of course, be respectful to everyone else. And during this time, you can also continue using the Q&A feature. We'll monitor that, see if anybody has questions we can address. But otherwise, you are more than welcome to use the raise hand feature. Now let's go to our first person. I see a Madison Coleman. I'm going to allow you to talk. You should be prompted to unmute yourself. Go ahead, Madison.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Hi, Madison Coleman, policy advocate with Climate Action Campaign. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'll try to be no more than a minute. First, I want to emphasize that this cap, needs to be legally binding, and that each measure within the cap needs to be specific, evidence-based, and contain mandatory requirements to ensure that the entire cap is meaningfully enforceable and can achieve zero carbon, which is the ultimate goal by 2045, or ideally sooner, in line with state goals. Building electrification specifically is critical to our climate and public health. And this cap is an opportunity for the county to focus on implementing existing all-electric opportunities through proven technologies to strengthen its building decarbonization efforts. And the development of cap strategies must be in collaboration with fossil fuel workers that will transition into all-electric jobs to ensure access to equitable job opportunities, especially for low-income communities of color. And that equity portion is extremely important. And then just a few other points. So the cap should really include all electric goals. I know that these points are echoing what other folks have said, but I think it's really important to just say it again. So the cap should commit to passing a REACH code to ban new methane gas infrastructure for all new development. It should commit to establishing strong equitable retrofit measures for existing buildings, such as developing a comprehensive all-electric retrofit plan. And it should commit to developing a county-owned building all-electric plan by 2035. And then lastly, the cap must also set energy efficiency targets for all residential, non-residential, and county-owned buildings. So I know that was a lot very quickly, but we'll be sending in a comment letter as the cap progresses, and we look forward to future collaboration with you all. Thanks for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you for that well thought out comment. And I hope that we covered a lot of that in our presentation tonight. So we're definitely striving to achieve a lot of those things, or all of those things that you asked for, if we can. So thank you so much for that comment. The next hand that I saw go up is Sean Keone Ellis. I will allow you to talk. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sean Keone Ellis. I'm the political organizer for the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union here in San Diego and in Imperial County. I'm serving this great county for probably over 100 years or so. I'm within an all the electric system and these new construction projects, putting at risk hundreds of jobs here locally in San Diego and thousands across the state. Local 230 and the United Association urges all cities and all climate action campaigns to maintain an all of the above approach to energy. Right now, we are on a cusp of really horrible inflation time right now. It's impossible to buy a home in San Diego. I'm currently in Imperial right now, meeting with community members on how hard it is for them to pay their bills. And so that being said, when we move to an all electric system and we don't provide every opportunity to create that electricity through other energy sources, such as carbon dioxide, carbon capture, hydrogen, green hydrogen, pink hydrogen, biodiesel, and so many other options that we have for a cheap dispatchable fuel that can lower the cost of living for so many Americans, including communities of interest like the Pacific Islander community that I am part of. So once again, I urge the city, the county, and everybody involved in this process, including my environmental brothers and sisters, to please look at this opportunity to move forward with an all of the above approach, keeping our energy bills down low as we can for our people while providing abundant amounts of green, clean energy. Okay, so thank you for your time, everybody. You guys have a beautiful evening.
Great, thank you for that comment, and really speaks to some of the things that we talked about of co-benefits and looking at the other kind of effects of this plan might have. So thank you for your comment and for bringing that up. And great, I see a few more people who would like to speak. I'd like to ask everybody when you do speak to please speak at a somewhat slower rate, just so our interpreter, our Spanish interpreter, Frida, has more time to interpret your comment into Spanish. So thank you. Next up in the list, I see Kurt Warden. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you. Kurt Warden, representing residents of Lincoln Acres in the unincorporated community. And what I want to say is in the CAP update, we had talked about, and there were several comments on the diversification of energy. All electrification is not necessarily a secure future. And the generation of electric means is also hazardous. That hazard reduction needs to be considered in creating an all-electric environment. And additionally, the CAP should include measures of efficiency. In other words, how the county is calculating efficiency. There are a lot of different methods to calculate efficiency, and those need to be made clear for the entire community to understand what you're measuring, how you're measuring it, and if that measure is appropriate and is achieving the goals that you want to achieve. So I appreciate it. I look forward to speaking to county staff about efficiency. I have in the past, and I look forward to continuing that conversation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for your comment and for that perspective that you bring into the process. So appreciate what you've shared with us tonight, and I look forward to having you stay involved in the process. Now we have I have Kendall Assumption. I'm going to ask you to unmute so you have a chance to speak.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Kendall Assumption. I was really excited to hear about a number of the strategies and was pleased that there was a breakout of the GHG emissions both by residential and commercial industrial uses. I wanted to just make note that commercial industrial users do have a different energy consumption profile. And as we're looking at actions that may reduce the natural gas consumption at those specific facilities, really ensuring that there are no unintended consequences, as I think we're spoken to in terms of looking at how to replace gas-powered equipment, specifically diesel gensets, and really wanting to make sure that while we are working towards a clean energy future, that the commercial and industrial uses are able to ensure that they have resilient energy, such as like on-site energy generation. And so happy to provide some additional resources on that, and wanting to ensure that the county continues to incorporate the SB 1383 requirements, which are the requirements to address the not only methane that is being generated by waste, both residential and commercial, but also the potential to capture and generate energy from that biomethane. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that comment, and really appreciate that, as well as other comments. It's the type of information that really helps us out of, what are kind of specific considerations that we should be keeping in mind as we develop these kind of like policies, incentives, etc. So thank you very much for your comment. Now I see Sean Keone Ellis, you have your hand raised. That might be from earlier though, but I'll ask you to unmute in case you did have a comment. Or it looks like you put your hand down. Great, thank you. All right, fantastic. I don't see anybody else's hands up, but I'll just give it one moment in case anybody has any more questions. And then Shortly thereafter, we will move on and close out the presentation. Great. All right. I see one more hand. Matthew McDaniel, you should be asked to unmute now.
Hi, everybody. I had a question regarding how we're going to calculate the net zero targets and if that's going to include sequestration and carbon offsets.
Great. So the calculation will be based on all of the generation of activities based on county fleets, county facilities, as well as a number of activities in the unincorporated area. And so we talked about a bit of those from the energy sector, and then we also talked about those in our other two emission sectors that we had previously, and then we'll talk about those in the next to built environment and transportation and agriculture and conservation. Now our direction from the board is to achieve a net zero energy goal between 2035 and 2045. And so that does have, by net zero, that means essentially we are reducing as much as we are producing. So that does leave the opportunity for potential natural sequestration options, such as things like planting trees, for example. Like a tree sequesters carbon as it grows. And so that was actually a strategy I should mention in our 2018 plan, was in the agriculture and conservation sector, increased carbon sequestration was a strategy, like we discussed our draft strategies tonight. And one of the specific measures for that strategy was increase county tree planting on county parks and facilities. So that's something in the 2018 cap, just for reference.
Okay. That's great. And that, so sequestration is part of the equation, but there's not right now any intent to use carbon offsets?
No, we are directed specifically by our board to not use carbon offsets.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for the questions, the comments. Give it one more moment in case anybody has anything that's come up that they would like to address or let us know about or ask about. Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm gonna, in the next couple slides, I'll let you know how you can stay engaged. So we can go ahead and move on and start to conclude the presentation for tonight, or the workshop for tonight. We'd like to reiterate that the county is committed to equity and robust engagement on all of our work, and your participation and feedback here will inform our approach to the CAP update. Here on the slide are some ways to stay involved in the CAP update and share your feedback. We invite everyone to contact us with questions, to request a meeting, or to provide input as the project progresses. Excuse me. And you can find a recording of this workshop that we had tonight on our website in about 2 weeks or so. And also, we ask you to keep an eye out for upcoming workshops on the two other sectors in the CAP update later this summer. We'll announce those soon. And as I mentioned earlier, those will be ag and conservation and the built environment and transportation sectors. And as some of you may already know, the county is currently developing the Regional Decarbonization Framework, or RDF, which will provide a roadmap to decarbonize major carbon emitting systems, such as the energy grid, transportation network, and energy use in buildings. This plan is larger in scope than the CAP, and it looks at the San Diego region as a whole. Ultimately, it will help provide guidance to local jurisdictions like unincorporated cities and the unincorporated county to help achieve zero carbon emissions. This plan is currently under development, and county staff have been reviewing the updates to see if there are areas where the county can lead by example. To help with early implementation of RDF and support future CAP efforts, the county will be asking for direction from the board on a few items during the August 31st hearing. Two of the items relate to the energy sector and include one, which is developing an energy resiliency and equity study, which will analyze unincorporated communities that require resiliency due to heat impacts or frequent power safety shutoffs, and or require relief from utility costs due to economic conditions. And a second study, which will be developing an existing building analysis and electrification option study. The study will examine the energy consumption in existing buildings and identify needed incentives or programs the county could implement to influence conversion of existing buildings to cleaner electricity or energy sources. So more to come on those later, and I hope that also addresses some of the questions and comments that we heard earlier in the presentation. So before we leave tonight, we want to remind you of some other projects happening out of our sustainability planning division here at the county. We have our organics material ordinance update, which will simplify and expand access to composting in the unincorporated area. We have a native plant landscaping policy options project that will look at ways the county can influence and encourage the use of native plants in private and public property. We also have an Accelerate to Zero initiative, which is a collaboration with others in the region to help develop regional strategies to increase infrastructure for zero emission vehicles. And we have a sustainable land use framework project, which we're using to reevaluate all of our county programs and initiatives to best achieve our transportation and climate goals. If you're interested in learning more about any of these projects, please let us know through the Q&A or the chat, or you can email CAP, that's C-A-P, at sdcounty.ca.gov. Message us and we'll get you in contact with the staff leads for those projects. Now that brings us to the conclusion of our workshop tonight. Thank you again to our interpreter, Frida, for all your help this evening. And thank you to all of our participants. Thank you everyone for your participation in the polls, for attending and for sharing your thoughts and your questions. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great night.